few days ago on October 24th, Treyarch ended up giving us an official blog post over on Reddit in which it talked about score streaked and blackout tunings, along with stability improvements for the overall server situation within Black Ops 4. They went on to list a lot of things that happened in hotfixes that day and other things up for discussion that were changed out throughout the week, but there's also one part in the introduction of that blog post in which they ended up saying the team is also working hard on the next major update to the game, currently planned to go live next week. This update will include our first major multiplayer weapons tuning pass based on all the data collected since launch, improvements to the audio system in Blackout, and lots more. And now as we fast approach that next week as of when this was posted, we can look out for a big update coming to Black Ops 4, probably that of a title update, something that we'll actually need to download, not just a regular playlist update like we've seen in the past couple of days over the past week or so. So that's something that we want to talk about today in this video. What all can we really expect here out of this update? What things can we look out for that will be changing, and are there any specifics currently known? So that said, let's just jump right into it. The first and biggest thing here out of this is something that's actually detailed right up front. One of two things that were detailed right up front by what we just described, that being weapon tuning. This is going to be a big part of this update and one of the reasons why we need an actual title update. For those of you that do or do not know about how these sort of updates work, is that playlist updates like a featured playlist are things that can be changed out by just a hotfix or something that requires you to restart your game. But when you end up going and tinkering around with the base code and the base formats of each individual weapon to actually adjust the statistical properties of them, that's going to result in an actual update coming, because you can't adjust those things on the fly as much as you can say, hey, let's make this playlist public and take one offline. So a big part of this actual update is going to be focused on changes to statistical data in the weapons that we've already seen so far, based off of, again, what Treyarch said is community feedback. So there might be some things changed to some weapons that you are really loving right now, or maybe you really think should be changed. So one that comes to my mind is if there's going to be any adjustments made to the ICR, and specifically with the attachment Grip 2. That's one that I've seen the community go absolutely nuts about. I've seen some things talking about how weak some things like the Outlaw are. The overall strength of SMGs is probably in question as well. This game is definitely an AR heavy game. And there's a lot that of course will be on the chopping block. As for what exactly will be changed out, we don't have any real idea, but with it being the first major weapons tuning pass as mentioned, I would expect a lot of weapons to hit the chopping block and be adjusted in some way, shape, or form. Whether that be major nerfs and major buffs, we don't know exactly to what extent, but you can probably expect your favorite weapon to have some sort of adjustment made to it. Whether that be just a slight alteration in maybe the ADS speed, or a straight up damage reduction or damage buff, that's something we'll have to see in time. Outside of weapon tuning, the only other thing that was explicitly mentioned here out of this first initial tease of an update coming is the Blackout audio systems being adjusted. Now, this is something that I can totally get behind. We've seen some work on it already for quite some time, and some slight alterations already made in the time that the game has been out in the public. But outside of this, we still have issues regarding spatial audio bugs persisting, and the overall mix of individual items like footsteps, those could probably be subject to change as well. When we talk about spatial audio, what I mean by this is that when you take a situation, say you're at like construction site. If you're in a situation like this, you can sometimes hear audio. It's not as bad as it was back in the beta, but if there's a player around you, whether he be above or below you, it will sound like he's right next to you, but obviously he's not. You can search all around the level you may be on and they might not be there. But instead, they could be above or below, but there's no real way to tell because it sounds like they're right next to you. And so there's no real spatial dampening whenever you take a look at levels of either height or distance. And if there's, say, a hill between somebody, that's something that doesn't really give any dampening either. So those sort of systems can be adjusted accordingly, to which it's more accurate and more fine-tuned, where you can tell if somebody is above or below you and not what seemingly sounds like right next to you. Of course, if they are next to you, you want to hear it, but you also want to be able to know that, hey, maybe I need to go up one level or down one level, maybe down 2 levels. And that's one thing also, is that sometimes it doesn't register how far away they actually are. They could be 2 or 3 levels, but it still sounds like it's right next to you. Additionally, when we talk about the mix of other audio layers, that's something that's been in question since the game came out, and even a little bit more so in the beta as well, that footsteps of even your teammates were so loud that you couldn't really discern if it was an enemy or your own teammates. And if I were to guess, it's something that, having seen some feedback from Treyarch themselves, they're looking to dampen that audio to the point where you can still hear footstep audio, but hearing enemy footstep audio would be more discernible and allow you to have your gun up and ready for an engagement because you know it's not your team. It may be more loud than your teammates at that point. But that's what we know is coming. What about other things we can look out for though? And this is where we start to cross over into that area of it may or may not happen, but we have good reason to think it may, and therefore it's worth at least mentioning that this stuff might come. So the first one that I want to talk about here out of these list of things is black market adjustments. I'm sure a lot of you guys are aware that Xbox One and PC finally got the black market and of course the Halloween event, that particular part starting just yesterday, but we got the entire black market on Friday given to Xbox One and PC players, so that now makes everybody have the feature available right now. Of course, it is still something that takes quite a long time. Right now, it's right around 7 days of in-game playtime that we talked about in a video a couple of days ago on the channel that you'd have to do to go from rank 1 to tier 200 out of all of that. So that's quite a hefty total you'll have to put into the game in a 52-day span. But that's not probably going to be the only way for long that you can end up doing it just by simply playtime. And this is where we start to think, maybe this will come in the update. Now that everybody has it, why not introduce it with the next update? That being things like the challenges that we've talked about for a couple of times here up on the channel already, and those earn rate accelerators perhaps. As for if we'll move over into what I think will inevitably become a way that you can buy tiers within that contraband stream, I don't know if we'll get to that just yet, but I think that we might have a good chance of those challenges being introduced later on in the week as for this update. Another thing I would definitely expect to happen is a change to the featured playlist. That is something that doesn't require a patch, but probably will be grouped in amongst the other things thrown in the mix as well. We usually see this happen on a Tuesday, and we'll talk about Tuesday in just a second again, but the featured playlist for this past week has been Mercenary Mosh Pit, and that's something that I'm really hoping gets implemented as a permanent feature soon, if not immediately after this switch with this update, because as a solo player, this made it incredibly fun and much more bearable in some situations, playing the game and going for challenges and just trying to just have fun with the game overall. So I'm really hoping that Mercenary gets added in as a permanent playlist. Whether or not it does, we'll see, but again, a featured playlist will probably switch out to be something completely different for this upcoming week. As for other things, I would expect some map exploit fixes to be adjusted here and finally implemented for some. We saw that the under the map glitch in Morocco was fixed out with the playlist update the other day, but there are things that still persist, and I would imagine that one like the Arsenal barrier glitch finally gets fixed up as well, and that gets taken out because I don't know if you guys have seen that one, but on Arsenal, it's not the greatest and easiest to counter because, well, they're literally in between the buildings and you can't shoot them. Other things in terms of a more technical aspect of the game are prestige custom classes. I think that this is going to be fixed out as well when this update comes out. As you guys may or may not know, once you get past prestige 2, you end up unlocking what is then an 8th creator class, and after that 7th creator class, they practically become unusable. So therefore they'll glitch out, they'll default back to whatever was there originally, and then it'll keep whatever you put on them actually in that class setup from custom class 8 and onward. So that's something that I would definitely anticipate to be fixed as well. One big one that I'm personally hoping for, but hasn't really been mentioned so far, are some more spawn logic adjustments. I couldn't tell you how many times I've spawned in, died to somebody shooting me in the back, spawned in, died to somebody shooting me in the side, whatever it is. I feel like there are so many maps in this game that you can actually invade spawns and you won't flip. So I'm hoping that there's some things like that across the board for TDM, domination, control, you name the game mode. There could be some work done across the board in any of them. I feel like there's definitely room for improvements across all the game modes in the game. And another thing that I would expect here to close this list out are Zombies Mastery camos. Treyarch mentioned this here briefly in passing, but for those of you guys that ended up unlocking gold, diamond, and even dark matter camo in multiplayer, you can't at the moment use those camos within zombies, and that's something that is going to be fixed out so that you can eventually do that. And again, I think that this might fall in line with this next update. And admittedly, I would absolutely love to see some camos finally come to Blackout. We'll see if that actually happens as well. That one has not really been mentioned really anywhere, but I'd love to see it. And if I'm being honest, I don't know if anybody caught it, but in the pre-release footage that some people had talking about camos, there were camo selections that I even saw myself in the game's build before launch that said Blackout. So I don't know if we'll see our own variation of camos within Blackout or if it's something we can swap from mode to mode, but I'd love to see some customization in Blackout as well. But we can talk about all the things in the world that may be coming to the update, but when will this be coming? That's the next and final big question here out of this video. if I were to guess, I'd say Tuesday. We've seen pretty much every major update come to Call of Duty in the past couple of years on a Tuesday. Of course, there are things like DLC launching on Xbox One and PC on Thursdays, but the majority of the time, the updates themselves actually happen on a Tuesday. So if I were a betting man, I'd say the update comes on Tuesday the 30th. So keep your eyes open because we are just a few days away from what will be an official title update for Black Ops 4 that may include all of what we talked about, maybe some of what we talked about, or maybe a ton more outside of what we talked about in Black Ops 4. So I'm super excited. I always love updates. I love seeing what changes. It's just something that fascinates me. And also the prospect of new content and maybe other things added in. Honestly, man, I would love to see some more customization as well, because right now it just feels like there's a little empty space. We don't have any uniforms for operators like we did in Black Ops 3 that are challenge-based. We don't see anything in terms of any real camos or anything in the reserve system or in the contraband stream. I'd love to see some more stuff like that, but outside of that, I'm also very curious to see the adjustments made to weaponry and the tunings made there, and also just the technical stuff covered in every other aspect of the game as well. So that said, that's where we're gonna wrap it up though. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. What are you guys anticipating and what are you guys hoping for out of the update coming this week in Black Ops 4? Is there anything in particular that we talked about or maybe didn't talk about you'd love to throw your thoughts out there on? Whatever it is, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But that said, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you drop a like down below. If you are also new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Black Ops 4, multiplayer, Blackout, zombies, all that good stuff we got you covered here up on the channel. So if any of that interests you, the best of tips, tricks, news, information, updates, class setups, you name it, we got you covered here up on the channel. So hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing regarding any of that. And if you guys also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, those are the best places to get connected outside of YouTube. Practically live on both those. So if you guys want to check those out, links are in the description below. But all that said and out of the way, hope you guys have a fantastic day. Thank you all so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.